All right. All right. So lastly, we're going to get into the nightcap of the Portland Trailblazers and Utah Jazz. The Jazz with a huge win, 117-96 over Portland at home. Or Utah, tough place to play. I'll start this one off if you don't mind. So Utah had 7 guys in double figures last night. And the Jazz are one of those teams to me that fly under the radar. They don't have, Donovan Mitchell is starting to become a big name, and Rudy Gobert is somewhat of a big name, but they don't have a Kevin Durant. They don't really have the money to sign a Kevin Durant player, but they don't have the big, money making name, so the Jazz are going to fly under the radar, but and of course Portland, they have Damian Lillard in there. He dropped 20 points for them. He's going to do that every night for them, coming in the future. But, to me, this was a big win for the Jazz. And you'll hear it here first. The Jazz will once again be a top 5 playoff team. Last year they were around this same exact point. One game under 500, right at 500. Then all of a sudden they turned it on and were one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And then I think the same thing can happen this year. Ricky Rubio's playing pretty well. He scored 14 for him, 6 assists. Rudy Gobert, 7 of 10 from the field. He scored 18. So, to me, Utah's just a dangerous team. They also got Kyle Korver back. He went 2 for 4 from 3. If he can get shooting the 3, we've seen him in Atlanta and Cleveland. He can lift any team. So I think the Jazz can be a dangerous team going forward here, especially at home. Especially at home.
You think the Utah Jazz are going to be a top 5 team in the West?
Without question. Turn it around.
That's tough. I mean, just the top 4 are amazing teams, and I think Houston's going to turn it up, and they're going to be, that 5 spot or even higher. I just can't see the Jazz, with Ricky Rubio on the court, and I just can't see it. I mean, I think they're going to make the playoffs, but top 5, that's a stretch.
I think they can. Utah's a tough place to play. I mean, it's, like Oracle, not a lot of NBA arenas, get into the game that much, at least from what I see. But the people in Utah, it's a whole nother level out there. And if they win games at home and they get on a home stretch, and then they steal a few on the road, I think they can be a tough team, and we saw it last year. They were nearly impossible to beat at home. Of course, until the Warriors came in, but, for the most part, they were a tough team to play in Salt Lake City.
We're missing the big picture here. The Utah Jazz are good. They're tough to beat at home. They play good defense. They play hard. Quinn Snyder's a great coach, underrated coach, doesn't get enough credit. The big picture here is that you want to talk about a pretender. The Portland Trailblazers are a pretender. They always suck in the playoffs. Damian Lillard and CJ shoot about 60 times a game. They think their stats are good. They can't beat no good teams when it comes crunch time. They got ran out of the playoffs last year by the Pelicans. I mean, it just is it's over for Portland. When they got rid of LaMarcus Aldridge, they haven't done much. The coach deserves to get fired. If they don't go get somebody, they're a pretender. They don't play good enough defense. They don't shoot consistently enough. They're a pretender to me. I mean, they're probably gonna make the playoffs again. They'll make the playoffs and probably get swept. I mean, I could really see them getting swept by it. Doesn't matter even who they play. I have more confidence in the Sacramento Kings in a playoff series than I do the Portland Trailblazers right now. The Portland Trailblazers are the ultimate pretender to me.
Portland, like Utah and Oakland, Golden State, tough team to play at home, but like you said, 100%. They have sucked in the playoffs, and they've won one playoff series in the last 25 years or whatever it is. It's been horrible for them. I'll give credit to Damian Lillard for being a good player and stuff, but one play, and when they have CJ McCollum, like the Jazz, they don't have very many big name players, but I just don't see the Blazers going far, and I'd agree with you with that. I'd take the Kings over the Blazers in playoff series as well. It's tough, but I would.
I'll piggyback off that. I think the Blazers, as long as Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are on the same team, they're not going to excel. I see one of them getting traded. I hope my Detroit Pistons go after him to be, honest with it. I think Lillard or McCollum on the Pistons would be great. But one of them got to get traded. You have guys like Aminu and Harkless that are on that team that don't have an identity in the NBA. They're not, great three-point shooters. They're not great defenders. They're just good athletes. They're good basketball players. Nurkic, I think he's an underrated center. He does his job. He has decent post moves. Can stretch out a little bit. Good rebounder, good shot blocker, etc. But they don't have that LaMarcus Aldridge that they used to. That scoring forward who can run a great pick and roll with Damian. Damian can create. He can kick to a shooter, etc. I think him and CJ kind of they don't complement each other well. So I think one of them needs to get traded. Other than that, Portland's coach doesn't do a good job. Their coaching is very poor. They're playing, 13, 14 guys a night. We see in the NBA that if you're not resting superstars, on typical nights, that you should not be getting that far into your bench. And I don't think the Trailblazers have that type of depth to play that many players either. So I agree. I agree with the pretender. I like that. I don't even think they make the playoffs this year. If they do, it's going to be a very low seed. 7, 8 seed. I think they might sneak in there. They're not going far. And I don't think the franchise for Portland right now is on an upward trend. Like I said, ever since they got rid of Aldridge, I think they've slowly been declining. I think you're going to see them let go of Lillard. I think you're going to see them let go of McCollum. Go get some draft picks and kind of start to retool. As far as Utah goes, last night was a big win for them. Again, blowout win at home. Utah, I think they're the total opposite of Portland. Each player has an identity. You look at guys like Joe Ingles and Kyle Korver. They know that, hey, I got to knock down a three. That they're the spot up shooters. I love both their games. I think they're both great shooters. I love the way Joe Ingles plays. He can be a feisty defender too. He knows he's not that athletic to stick with guys like LeBron and KD, but he's still up for the challenge. I like that. I love Donovan Mitchell. I wish he was wearing a Detroit jersey right now. The man, he's a freak athlete. We seen him catch that alley-oop last night, and it's just like, whoa, the kid can fly. I think, again, he falls in that Jason Tatum level, one of those guys who is definitely going to be upcoming all-star for years to come. Ricky Rubio, he's a great pick-and-roll guy. You got Gobert. I don't think the Utah Jazz really need a superstar to be good. I think they play well as a team. They have an identity. They play upbeat every night. They bring their best to the table. They have decent depth. You have guys like that can contribute too off the bench. Jay Crowder was a big acquisition last year. Korver, Exum has played well. He's finally, Dante Exum was a lottery pick, I believe, and he's finally starting to come into his role as that point guard off the bench. He's been playing well too. So I agree with you, Jake, on the Utah Jazz being probably a 5 seed. And, I think they can make a decent run in the playoffs. They're not a team that they don't go out, they don't grab superstars, things like that, but they're well coached and they play well as a team.
Yeah, I mean, that. Oh,
Go ahead, Hibbs.
Go ahead, Ibby.
You guys are saying all these great things about the Jazz, but the first 35 games of the season are 17 and 18. And I think out of anyone in the NBA, they're the biggest underachievers so far. Do I think they're going to make the postseason? I do believe so. I think they're going to be more of like a 6 or 7 seed. I think they're just too far behind the top 4 or 5 right now. They put themselves behind the 8 ball with the start they had. I mean, the talent and the roster they have, there's no reason why they should be below 500 at this point, but I do think they're going to turn around. And on the flip side, the Portland Trailblazers, 19-15, there's no upside to them. They've had the same pieces, seems like, for the last 4 or 5 years. Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum kind of remind me of an Eastern Conference team out of Washington with that backcourt, where they just can't figure it out. The same situation with Bradley Beal and John Wall. It hasn't been working. Both teams in the East and West have been regressing. They just need to blow it up. One guy just has to go. They need to get a new face in there because they just can't figure it out. And when you can't figure something out for 4 or 5 plus years, you need to start making some changes because they're not making any improvements. I'm looking at guys in the roster, some young dudes, Swanigan. He hasn't really progressed. I don't know if the NBA is too fast for him, but you need guys like Stauskas, Collins to step up. Let's see, who else? Because, I mean, look at Turner. He's been there for I don't know how many years. Colum, Lillard, Aminu, Nurkic has been there for a little while now, so they need to make some moves because before we know it, the Blazers will be robbed.
I agree. I think a little bit of the Jazz. I think Donovan Mitchell's going to be really good, but he's struggled so far at the beginning of the year statistically. He shot a pretty low percentage, so I think he'll be okay. He'll get it going. He just is in one of those one of those bad shooting times right now. So they're going to be okay. I don't think they'll be a top 5 seed, and I think part of it is that LeBron is in the West now, and I think a lot of people at first the Lakers might not even make the playoffs, but LeBron is going to bump some of those teams that have been able to get to the top 5 seeds and flirt there. He's going to bump some of them down now because he's the best player. We've seen it. We saw in the East for so long. He's going to do that to teams.
Yeah.
And so, but nobody wants to play the Jazz though because if you got to go to Utah, those are 2 really hard games. You earn the victories. They don't give you those. You have to go earn those victories. So they're going to be tough. The Trailblazers, still a pretender. Don't even get me started about the Washington Wizards. They should just, fire everybody involved right now because they look awful.
Yeah. And, the Jazz are absolutely going to be dangerous in the postseason, especially, like I said, if they do finish 6th or 7th, and they might end with, say, Golden State as a 2 seed, and that could be a possible first-round matchup. That would be a very must-watch TV. But I think with Donovan Mitchell, he went under the radar last year, where he was 4th or 5th on the scouting report, and now coming this year, he's 1st on the scouting report. So that's probably a little drop in his numbers, the reasons for that.
I agree.
I'll take off. Go ahead, Dr. Pepper.
So last night, like you guys been saying, Utah, I definitely think is going to make the playoffs for sure. Then, just getting started. They played pretty good last night, as we all know. But Portland, their first game of the season, if I recall, was versus the Lakers, right? They played really well, beat them, Sauce Castillo, Nick Stauskas, had a pretty good game, and I was like, oh, maybe this year's going to be different, They are sitting pretty good right now. What was it, 19 and 15? That's pretty good. But I thought it'd be different, they would be better than, past years. Like last year, they made the playoffs and they were pretty high seed and they got, swept or something? That's the Pelicans.
Blown out by the Pels.
They got embarrassed. So I think it's just, like you guys have been saying, just scrap that. I think CJ's got to go. Like Trav said, going to the Pistons wouldn't mind them, We need another piece. But, Lillard and McCollum, they're just not a good pair. Yeah, they're both very talented, but they're just not good together. And, so I think Portland, they're both will make the playoffs, but Portland will get bounced early like usual. And then Utah, I think they're going to upset someone. They definitely could, Their fans are really passionate in Utah. Last year, if I remember, there was a politician in the crowd from there, and he was, giving Russell Westbrook, the 5 fouls. He was, their fans are incredible. One of the most passionate in the NBA, and so I think they're definitely going to get to the 2nd, 3rd round, but yeah, just scrap Portland. They're one, like Washington, scrap them both. Just start over.
I'll take you back.
I think when you look at it, I'm going to use the Toronto Raptors as an example. And they were the number 1 seed in the East last year. They lost to LeBron again. And I actually was upset when they fired Dwayne Casey. I didn't think he deserved to be fired. But I'm going to give them credit. They fired Dwayne Casey, but they moved DeRozan and went out and got Kawhi. And, we haven't got a chance to talk about it much on the show yet. I'm sure we'll get there. The Raptors are a contender. And they made a move, but they knew it had been 8 straight years. LeBron they couldn't guard LeBron. They had no chance. But they moved one of the guys. They were successful in the regular season. They had no chance in the playoffs. And they moved one, and now, they're probably the favorites to win the East right now. And so when you look at like Portland, Hibby mentioned the Wizards, and you start to think about some of these teams when you don't even have a chance in the playoffs. And Portland hasn't had a chance. Like they get waxed by the Warriors, they got waxed by the Pelicans. They're just if you don't have a chance, you got to start to move pieces and take your chances. Look at the Clippers. The Clippers failed with Blake, Chris Paul, and DeAndre for the longest time. And now that they moved all of them, and they're having a pretty good year. They're competitive. I mean, they're going to compete for a playoff spot. But just because now they have a bunch of guys that are bought in with each other, they're playing hard. So I hate teams that stick together for 10, 15 years and they don't accomplish anything, and they stick with it and they don't accomplish anything. Like I like teams that say, hey, we're not going to win a championship. Let's make some moves.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I'm going to piggyback off of what Trav said with Joe Ingles. To me, he's one of my favorite players in the whole league. It was funny. I think it was to Nurkic. He said, he's like, watch this, I'm going to shoot this. And he drains a three right in his face. So he's one of those players that kind of flies under the radar with the Jazz, and the whole team does. Dante Exum started to step up. And with what Zai said about the Raptors, I do see them as being a contender in the Eastern Conference. And maybe, who knows, with where Golden State goes, Toronto could win a title this year. If Golden State falls apart, which I hope they don't, but they could, So you never know. I mean, the NBA, it's always a toss-up, like the Clippers. The Clippers won't get the credit they deserve because they play in the same arena LeBron does, so NBA, it's a toss-up, but it's always enjoyable to watch every night and see what these players can put on for us.
The 7 in their last 10 games, they're not going to make the playoffs.
We'll see.
They're going to get passed by the Trailblazers, Rockets,
we'll see
Spurs,
we'll
Jazz,
see.
and maybe Mavericks.
We'll see. I think the Clippers will compete. They'll compete every night. So I tend to think they're going to win more than they're going to lose.
They'll compete. Clippers will finish 11th in the West.
The West is deep. There's going to be a couple good teams that miss the playoffs. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Happens every year.
Last thing I'm going to say, as Hibby's boy Stephen A. Smith would say, Kawhi Leonard is a bad man.
He is. But all in all, I think this kind of all this, it's very intriguing, but it's going to end up like it has the last few years. Different matchup in the finals. I think it's going to be Celtics, Warriors, but Warriors winning it all. That's how it's going to end.
I hope so.
It's an interesting dynamic to see Kawhi Leonard go against LeBron in the finals. We see in the past,
That would mean
Kawhi wasn't the man like he is now. Like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, like that was their team, wasn't Kawhi's. But it'd be very interesting to see him go head to head in the finals as Kawhi and honcho.
I agree. I've argued with so many people. Before Kawhi Leonard got hurt and everything melted down in San Antonio, people forget that he was up 21 points in Oracle with not very good Spurs teammates at the time, and he was dominating the Warriors. So I would love for Kawhi to get back. I would love to see him play the Warriors. I'd love to see him play LeBron. But for Kawhi, he's put himself in a situation where the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him because, he just, he disappeared. So now his actions, he's got to really go ball out in the playoffs for people to kind of give him that respect again.
Yeah, and the Raptors are extremely well-rounded this year. When Kawhi doesn't play, statistically, the Raptors are better, and I don't understand why that is, but they're just playing tremendous team basketball right now.
Kyle Lowry deserves respect. He is balling this year. DeRozan left. I thought Lowry took a lot of heat when DeRozan was there, and people always said, he can't make a big shot. He didn't. He is balling this year, and he deserves some respect. I mean, arguably, other than maybe Kyrie, he's second best point guard in the East.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before this season, I'm not going to lie, I said Kyle Lowry was kind of like not a bum, but I just didn't think he had a good game. I always liked DeRozan, but I always thought, Lowry's not good enough. So, but I mean, this year he's really stepped it up, like Zai said, and he's one of the best point guards in the East and overall. So
put timeout, Dr. Pepper. Kyle Lowry hasn't done anything. And you want to say that he's one of the best point guards in the NBA? Stop it, Dr. Pepper. How many Dr. Peppers do you had tonight?
I just got 64 from my house, if that.
I think Kyle Lowry has to play good in the postseason. I agree with that, but I'm just saying, I think a lot of people blamed him, and we're always like, "Hey, DeRozan's a superstar, and Lowry doesn't sidekick him good enough." I'm starting to think it was the other way. Lowry was really the superstar on that team, and DeRozan probably took too many shots and did stuff because DeRozan. I mean, the thing is about if Kawhi, I look at it this way: if Kawhi was on the Spurs would be top 5 in the West, hands down. But now he's gone. The Spurs, I'll say it first. The Spurs are not going to make the playoffs. They don't have enough. LaMarcus Aldridge is too old now. They got rid of Danny Green. You lost Kawhi. They don't have enough. DeRozan can't get them there, especially in the West now that LeBron's there. The Spurs cannot make it. And but the thing about it is when Kawhi doesn't play, Lowry is back in the Raptors. Where I think if it was the other way around, if Lowry would have left, DeRozan wouldn't be able to backpack the Raptors.
Well, I think you just see that DeMar DeRozan is a poor man's version of Kawhi Leonard. If Kyle Lowry is your number one in the face of your franchise, you're not very good. He has to be a sidekick, and he's a very good sidekick. But he shouldn't be the go-to option on your team. And the Spurs will make the playoffs.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
I'm going to have to disagree with that's a full timeout on that. That's no way.
That's about 2 full timeouts right there.
Greg Popovich is the best coach in NBA history. He will get him in the playoffs.
He's not shooting the shots for him.
Yeah, he's a great coach.
With that one, too.
And then they've been unfortunate. DeJounte Murray got hurt. That was a big loss because he was an upcoming player. They've had some unfortunate events. They can't make it. But end of the day, it's going to come down to the Warriors. Are the Warriors going to be the Warriors, or are they going to give other people chances?
Agreed. They can't leave the door open for people. And, I agree with what Ryan said, about the DeMar DeRozan thing. We talking about Kyle Lowry not taking any big shots. He never really got to take any big shots because it was DeRozan taking them all. I think the only big shot Lowry, I remember him hitting is the half-court buzzer beater, and he wasn't, that wasn't really planned. You're down 3, you got to chuck it up. But DeMar DeRozan really kind of took most of the thunder away from Kyle Lowry in Toronto, and now that Lowry gets to play with Kawhi, Toronto's clicking, and then they beat Golden State the other night. Toronto's good. They could win the title to me,
I agree.
They could. If Golden State, like you said, if Golden State wants to leave the door open for people, Toronto could, creep in and win their first title, or if the Warriors want to decide, let's be the Warriors, we're talking 4th title in 5 years. So that'll wrap it up. Remember, never take a timeout unless you have one. Thank you, Ibby, for being on the audio with us tonight, even though you couldn't really be with us. But thank you as well, and thank you for everybody, and we'll see you next time.